Alvius, and welcome to my blog for the Monaco Grand Prix 2012, another eventful race. Obviously, qualifying, it was fantastic to see Michael Schumacher taking pole position. So many doubters over the last couple of years. I've heard many people from, even within racing, say he's slow, he's not as fast as he used to be. All of this kinds of sort of nonsense that we've been hearing out of people, even during the weekend, and nobody was mentioning him on Sky. They had a lot of backing for Lewis Hamilton on Sky. They really felt that he was going to be the man to dominate. And to myself, it's always seemed very open. If you asked me who to call a winner for the race, I couldn't have said a few days ago. There's so many people that have the potential if their cars are working on the tyres. And Michael Schumacher hooked up a perfect lap and put that together. Of course, he had his grid penalty. I didn't necessarily agree with that grid penalty myself, but a grid penalty it was, and he was starting from 6th place on the grid with everything to play for. Turn 1, bit of action. Obviously, we had Alonso with a reasonable start, Lewis with a poor start, Grosjean with a so-so start, but we had Michael Schumacher with a great start. Ideally, Grosjean probably should have yielded. With Michael coming up on the outside and Alonso going through on the inside, it would probably have been better judgment to have fallen in behind Fernando. But this all happens in about 2 seconds, and sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong, and sometimes you think someone's going to go somewhere and they're going to go somewhere else, and you want to hold your position because you know how important it is around Monaco. Of course, we had Maldonado smacking into the back of the HRT, a little bit unsighted of what was happening up ahead, but at the same time you have to say he was pushing very hard into turn 1 again, and I really did feel that with the HRTs and the Virgins and the Caterhams in front, that you really just got to play it safe for those first few laps and then work your way through. It's the only way at Monaco. Once you're starting from the back of the grid, your race is ruined. And to be fair on him, it was within his own power, the actual mistake he made. It wasn't really anyone else he can blame but himself for it. Early on in the race, I think Felipe Massa had a great qualifying, had a lot of speed as well in the race, was being held back. Fernando conserving his tyres, saving fuel, very much planning for the long race. Anything can happen before showing his sort of pace. We saw Carter spinning on his own as well at the hairpin, which was quite interesting. But of course, Alonso then putting together some really good laps, beating Lewis Hamilton in track position. It wasn't a great stop from McLaren, but on the whole, they just didn't have the pace to respond. And then we had this long period of awaiting the rain today, which just never materialised, which I thought was a bit of a shame, because at this point the race was very much a procession, wasn't going anywhere. Vettel got in the lead. Let's talk about Vettel for a minute. He started away down, benefited by overtaking 3 cars at the start. I felt that Vettel on the whole did benefit heavily from that crash. A little bit too heavily, honestly. He went straight through full speed and overtook 4 cars. It seemed all too easy at Monaco to do that. But himself, and I can see that they had nowhere to go, and that from a judgment perspective, there's not really much you can do about it. But at the same time, I think it's definitely an issue where Monaco's concerned, and it certainly benefited him throughout the entire race, gave him the opportunity of the lead. Mark Webber probably being told to slow down and conserve tyres and save fuel at this point, I should imagine, hoping that Vettel will come out ahead of Mark Webber, or no doubt Red Bull probably were. That's probably my conspiracy theory hat on, but you never know. Mark Webber didn't seem all that pleased at the end, did he? Of course, a penalty for Perez due to late pit entry with Kimi Räikkönen coming up behind him. It was a late pit entry. He should have been on the inside, letting Kimi Räikkönen go by on the outside. It happens all the time. I know there was some debate on Sky of, well, what could he do? Well, he should have stuck to the inside when he came round the corner, not gone outside on the racing line. Of course, Jenson Button coming out the pits, losing out to the Caterham. I just don't understand what McLaren were doing here. They have a chart and it says that's how long it's going to take to pit stop, that's where Jenson is, and that's where the Caterham is. So he needs to stretch out a bit more time and he's okay. What part of that didn't they get right? You have to wonder with McLaren where their thinking was. They've got it all in front of them. So he came out and his race was absolutely ruined after that. It was a waste of time. Nobody could overtake anyone in the whole race today. Very disappointing. I mean, normally at Monaco, people can overtake into turn 1. They can overtake sometimes out of the tunnel. But with the cars this year, they just don't seem to be able to do that. And DRS had absolutely no effect on this race whatsoever. So it was a race of tyre preservation, but it was also a race of what shall we say? The tyres lasted too long. The soft tyres lasted too long. You'd expect 2 or 3 pit stops, force the teams, have the tyres crumbling under them so that they need to pit, and that enables overtaking via the pit stops. It adds a bit more action. I think when you have a soft tyre that can last for 40 laps, a super soft tyre, should I say, it just seems a bit excessive. And unfortunately, with the one stop today, it was a day of tyre preservation. Nevertheless, Mark Webber held it all together from pole. That probably would have been Michael Schumacher, who probably would have finished the race had he not had that significant impact into the first corner. No doubt that probably did some damage in the car. Nevertheless, Mark Webber, 2-time winner of Monaco Grand Prix, a good win for him. His message to the team at the end really sounded not the most happiest, did it? I think he felt perhaps that they wanted Vettel to win and for him to hold everybody back and let Vettel win. But again, you just never know on things like that. I mean, you can only look at the body language of the driver and say, that wasn't the happiest Mark Webber, was it? I wonder why. And so there's always politics within the team. Interesting with Lewis Hamilton mentioning about the numbers from the boards falling on his head. That's quite interesting. I look forward to seeing some video footage on board of that happening. Whose board was it? Very interesting. And we also have this curious matter of the holes at the rear of the Red Bull. No doubt there'll be some clarification on that shortly. F1, they're always developing new things and pushing the rules to the absolute limit. But sometimes they cross that limit. But with the Red Bull, there's always been questionable bits and pieces. But this year they've been pushing very hard against Mercedes for their Super DRS system, trying to get it banned. And you can't help but feel that if you're going to start, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, as they say. And if you're going to start criticising things which are marginal on other cars, then they're going to start criticising things which are marginal on your car. So I think this is going to be something which is going to go on and on. It's just very public at the moment. Normally a lot of this is discussed behind closed doors, but there's always lots of gamesmanship between the teams. So it's a very competitive season. We've had 6 winners from 6 Grand Prix. It's great to see Mark Webber up there. Nico Rosberg doing a fantastic job in second. Fernando Alonso in a rejuvenated Ferrari, now taking the lead on the championship. Great for him. I will be happy to see Alonso getting a just reward for some of his very hard work for the team. And Stefano Domenicali as well. Very nice man. He's been working very hard keeping the team together, holding off a lot of pressure on Ferrari over the last few years and with Felipe in recent times as well. And he's kept the team together and they did a very solid job today. So let's see if they can claw themselves back into the Constructors' Championship as well. Spectacle of a race, but certainly not the most exciting Monaco. It was somewhat processional. It was controlled by the tyres too heavily. And I look forward to Canada, where hopefully we'll have a much more open environment. The temperature may potentially be hotter, maybe a bit rainy, who knows. But it'll be interesting to see how the tyres degrade, because classically the tyres have degraded quite a lot around that track. We've seen a lot of tyre degradation and it could add to it. We could see more stops, everything else. And if we have some rain, who knows? Last year's race with Jenson Button was absolutely spectacular. So not the best Monaco this year. But we do look forward to Canada in a couple of weeks' time. So now I'll be going off to watch the Indy 500 as I say this. I still have my unshaven Mark Webber look today. I thought I'd just save it to get this blog out for you guys real quick. We're also going to have a couple of interviews up this week as well relating to F1 Online. I'll be testing out the beta, giving you guys some information on that, as well as interviews relating to Dirt Showdown and RaceNet as well. So still more information to come. And I look forward to hearing your feedback on Dirt Showdown as well. No doubt we'll have a review up on the Team VV website very soon. But that's it from me for now, viewers. As ever, more soon.